Hello, my name's Roisin and welcome back to my channel. Today I am starting a reading vlog, bit of a different reading vlog. I'm only going to be reading one book in this reading vlog. It's going to be just over a few days, whilst over the bank holiday weekend for the new year, whilst I read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I've been meaning to read this for ages. I have a classics degree. I studied this stuff for 4 years, but I've never read The Song of Achilles. I actually don't have that much experience reading Greek myth retellings. I don't know what it is. It's because I usually want to have read the source material first, and whilst I have studied the Iliad, I've never read it from cover to cover. So I'm going to try and read The Song of Achilles over the next few days and talk to you about it as someone who has a classics degree, who is quite familiar with the myths, even though I haven't read the Iliad from cover to cover. I have read a lot of scholarship about the Iliad, so I think I've got fairly good understanding. Also because I'm trying to tackle my physical TBR this year, and this one's been on there for a while. So last year I did do a couple of reading vlogs where I only read one book. I read Wintering by Catherine May, and I read Normal People by Sally Rooney, and I will leave those linked in the cards above if you are interested. So I thought I would give that a try again this year, and we are starting with Song of Achilles. Now I need to finish editing my video that needs to go up today, and I need to then go to the post office. So I'm not going to start into this one right now, and I will see you in a bit. Hello! So I barely spoke to you yesterday because we went for lunch at my boyfriend's family's house, my boyfriend's mum's house, and we played games and stuff, and then we got back and I just had a bath and went to bed. So I haven't had not been doing much, but I have read the first like 20% of Song of Achilles. I'm kind of surprised because everyone who's spoken about Madeline Miller's writing has talked about how like atmospheric it is, and how like slow moving and really building the setting, and the world building is really great. And so far for this, I found the opposite to be true. Like, it's really not very atmospheric. The writing itself is not particularly beautiful, and the setting, we're much more plot focused than setting. Like, a lot has happened. At the beginning of this book, we have been moving through the plot quite fast, and I understand why, because we're starting from when Patroclus was a child, and we've got to get all the way up to the Trojan War. So we've got a while to go, and currently where I am, we are with Chiron. He is teaching him, Achilles, how to be a hero, like Philoctetes in the Hercules film. It's not what I was expecting. However, like I've said, the writing isn't particularly beautiful. What it is really compelling. Like, when I'm reading it, I don't feel like putting it down. So that is a good point for this book. I'm really like drawn to go through it, and I think I will be able to read this quite quickly because of that, because of the compelling writing. The commentary on the ancient world is interesting because we are very much from a masculine perspective, which is true of the Iliad and the Odyssey and all the tragedies that we have, although there are some written with kind of with female main characters, more than from a female perspective. Everything apart from Sappho that we have is by men, and so classical Athens in particular was a very masculinist, chauvinistic, patriarchal society where women weren't even allowed to speak outside of the home. So although we are not in classical Athens, because we're not in classical antiquity, we're in like the time of heroes, we are kind of seeing that ancient Greek, like real strong patriarchal society of strength and violence against women. There's talk of the discovery of sexuality, because obviously that's an important part of this book, and how these boys are like attacking basically enslaved women, who they are like, oh no, but she really likes me and she wants to anyway, and it's like, and then Madeline Miller gives a commentary of like, well, at least that's what they say, the men say what they tell themselves. So yeah, because if you know the story of Achilles, you know that an enslaved woman is going to be an important part of the story. I think that that's an interesting way of setting that up. I did want to mention that although I do have a degree in classics, my degree was much more, I mean, I did Latin and I did the languages and the philosophy and the history, but my degree was mostly literature focused. So I'm coming at this from a perspective of someone who has studied the literature of ancient Greece more than someone who is an ancient Greek historian. So if there are historical inaccuracies in terms of the way that rituals are performed or things that people are wearing. I'm not going to be particularly aware of that because my study was much more literature focused, and whilst we obviously did get the history as context whilst we were studying it, that wasn't what my focus was. And so I'm not going to be able to like say, oh well, this is inaccurate to history, because one, when we study ancient Greek history, we are mostly studying from the 5th century onwards, or at least I was studying from the 5th century BC onwards, from like the Peloponnesian War, the Persian War, I can't remember the proper name for that sort of thing, from Herodotus. Whereas this is set in the Age of Heroes, which is, Homer was written 700, 800 BC, and the Age of Heroes is even before that. So this is not, it's not based on history, obviously, it's based on mythology, so it is fantasy. Anyway, so that kind of historical accuracy, one, is less important, and two, it's kind of hard to know because the Greeks themselves didn't know when they were writing their own history. They weren't very good at knowing what was actually going on, because they didn't have like carbon dating and stuff. Anyway, yes, that was, I just wanted to say that I'm not an ancient historian, so I'm not going to be looking at this from a historically accurate perspective, just from a literature perspective. Now I'm just going to go out on a walk with some of our friends, and then we're going to have some cheese and some non-alcoholic mulled wine because she is 9 months pregnant, so we're not going to be drinking alcohol, but red wine gives me migraines anyway, so I think non-alcoholic red wine might be better. So yeah, we're going to go and do that, and then I'll get back and read some more and come back and talk to you, but I will take you on that walk. Hello. Oh, that light is bad, isn't it? Can you see me now? Do I look like I'm being interrogated? So, come back from the walk now, as you can tell, and I am wearing a blanket. I got this for Christmas from my boyfriend's father. It is a blanket you can wear. Slanket, I believe. Blanket with sleeves. Got my candle on, got my book. Haven't read any more of it since I last talked to you, but I also haven't talked to you very much, so I thought I should talk to you. I know it is very dark, but it's not even 4 o'clock yet, I don't think. I am half asleep. I don't know what's wrong with me. I went out for a walk with my friends, and then we had cheese and tea afterwards, and my friend is 9 months pregnant and she needed a nap, and I'm like, well, that makes sense, you're 9 months pregnant, you need a nap. I am no months pregnant. Not at all pregnant, not even vaguely close to pregnant, and I'm so tired. I need a nap. Anyway, regardless, instead of nap, I'm going to read the Song of Achilles and talk to you in 100 or so pages. Hello. So I have now had a bath. My boyfriend made me this oat sock because I saw it on TikTok. A sock filled with oats to have a bath with, because it makes the water like kind of like porridge water, but kind of silky. And because I have Epsom salts in my baths every time I have a bath, because I have chronic pain and chronic muscle stiffness from my chronic pain. Why is it acting like I'm in the dark when I press record and it's not when I'm not? I don't know. So I have Epsom salts. Epsom salts dry you out. The oats were supposed to counteract that. It was quite a nice bath. Anyway, I am about a third of the way through now. We've just had a messenger come to say that Agamemnon has called everyone to Mycenae, so we know what's going to happen now. The Trojan War is beginning. Trojan War lasted 10 years, so obviously still a long way to go. the thing that I am a little confused by at the moment is the representation of the relationship between Achilles and Patroclus. Not that they are lovers, that's not strange. It's the shame and the worry that Patroclus is feeling about this relationship, because I'm not sure it makes any sense. It feels a little like a modern understanding of a queer relationship, because obviously, like, we can't put labels from modern day onto ancient peoples, but what we do know is that the Greeks thought that relationships between men were not weird or unusual. Like, a lot of the relationships between men that are talked about in ancient Greece are pederasty, between like mid-teens to later teenage boys and young men who have grown beards but are in their like early 20s, and it's kind of a training thing, like a coming of age. But relationships between men in general were things that were considered, and like in Greek sexuality, the good thing was to be the giver and the bad thing was to be the receiver, kind of regardless of gender, although they only really talk about men like actively, and women were just receivers. I'm not going to go like in depth by some of the stuff that I did study human sexuality in ancient in antiquity, so I have done some like research in this area. I'm not going to go too deeply because I don't want to get demonetized. Particularly Achilles and Patroclus as a relationship. Achilles and Patroclus are talked about between Plato and Aristotle, about like their relationship, the nature of their relationship is discussed. Alexander the Great and his lover reenacted Achilles and Patroclus because Alexander the Great was determined that he was Achilles, basically. So their relationship, their being lovers, it feels odd that they are like ashamed of and trying to hide it. And I wondered if it was because for Thetis, Achilles' mother, she is set up in here as hating mortals because she was raped violently by a mortal. She is set up as hating mortals, and so maybe it's more like the mortal demigod relationship that is the problem. But it seems like Patroclus is worried about this relationship in terms of his father and Achilles' father, and they're like, and Chiron, the centaur who's training them, in a way that I don't feel like makes much sense. Like, boys in ancient Greece in this kind of situation, I feel like would almost be not expected, but it wouldn't be a surprise or weird if they were in a relationship. And like, Thetis hates mortals, but mortal demigod relationships are not weird. Like Jason, Theseus, Heracles, they were all married, so to mortal women. So I don't really know where that's coming from. This kind of like, I thought, again, initially I thought it was that Patroclus was worried that Achilles didn't feel the same way. So that makes sense. In the way that this is being set up in teenage relationships, that makes sense. But this, we can't be doing this, feels like it's being hinted at it's because they're boys, and that wouldn't, from as far as I know, that wouldn't be as much of a problem, particularly because they are boys and they are not like, we now need to get married and procreate. So it would be part of their coming of age, would be relationship with other boys. I don't know. I'm not like an expert in this area. Like I said, I just have an undergraduate degree. I've just done a couple of modules on this sort of thing, so I can't say for 100% that no, it would never have been like that. I thought that they would be a bit more like relaxed and open about their relationship because of the way that I understand ancient Greek relationships between men. Particularly there are poets from classical Athens who talk about how your love between men is real love. That's real, pure love. That's where your aesthetic, your romantic, your intellectual attraction is between men, and women are just for procreation. And there are arguments about whether love is better between men and women, like Aristotle's Poetics. No, not Aristotle. Aristophanes in Aristotle. Is that right? Aristophanes in Aristotle's Poetics talking about love. In Aristotle's Poetics, they talk about this, about, I'm pretty sure it's that, they talk about like whether women or men are better for loving. And so like, the fact that the only thing you couldn't be was a woman, basically, that was the worst thing. And so, yeah, I'm a little surprised that that is in here. Somebody in the comments, if you know that I'm wrong, please let me know, because there might be some reason for this that I'm not understanding. And also, like, the end of this book, the last like 50 pages, is information from Madeline Miller, maybe. It says PS, insight, interviews and more. So maybe she will talk a bit in here about why she chose to do that, because I'm sure she knows what she's talking about. Like, I'm sure she's done the research. I don't personally understand the motivation behind that. But I'm going to keep reading, and I'm also going to do some yoga, because I'm doing yoga with Adrian again this January. Okay, so this is a very small point, but every time that the narrative says something like, oh, I hope someone with clever ears doesn't hear about this, or I hope someone clever doesn't work this out, I'm like, oh, so Odysseus is coming. You're telling me Odysseus is going to work this out, aren't you? Hello, so it is the morning. Now we are in my conservatory again, but I've moved to the chair to try and make it seem a little less repetitive. So I am now about 125 pages from the end of this. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's, like I said, very compellingly readable, but the writing style is not really my favourite. Like, I wanted it to be more beautiful and lyrical, which is what I was expecting from Madeline Miller, and I don't know, maybe if Circe is more that, but it's just the way that it's always been described to me, her writing, and atmospheric and lyrical. Oh, my oven's preheated, hang on, I'll be back. So anyway, yeah, the writing style is not my favourite. I don't hate it either, like, it's very compellingly readable, like I said, and it's not bad. It's just, I was expecting more atmosphere, more lyricism than I'm getting from the writing. Now, the other things that I have been thinking about, the characterisation of Achilles. That interests me because Achilles is kind of a dickhead, and he's not being portrayed as such in here. And of course, this is an adaptation. You can do whatever you want with these characters. You can make Achilles entirely misunderstood. He is becoming more of a dickhead now he's among the Greeks in the Trojan War, but it's very much being explained to us because we see him as a dickhead, like when we read the Iliad, but to the ancient Greeks, like, that's just what heroes were like. But heroes were dickheads and gods were dickheads. How many times can I say the word dickhead? So that's kind of being explained to us a lot, because we're told from Patroclus a lot of the Greek things are being overly explained to us, and like someone will say a speech and then he'll say, Patroclus will say, oh, this was said well, we Greeks care about this, this and this. And I'm like, that kind of writing always annoys me, but like always annoys me in any book when someone explains why a piece of speech works, or when someone explains the point of a ritual. It always annoys me because I just want to get it from context clues. So I don't think it's just because I have a classics degree and know some of the background behind this and kind of maybe have more knowledge than people, because Madeline Miller obviously wants to write this for people who don't know the myth as well as for people who do know the myth, and maybe that's why the explanation is in there, but I always prefer it without too much explanation. So that might just be a personal preference thing, and it might be because I know the myth. I don't know. The other thing that I was wondering about, the difference between people who know the myth and people who don't, is like the foreshadowing. The foreshadowing feels very heavy to me of what's going to happen, but is that just because I know what's going to happen? Because like Hilary Mantel, who I can't go a video without talking about, she does foreshadowing as well, because in Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies and The Mirror and the Light, you know who is going to get beheaded. You know Anne Boleyn, for example, is going to lose her head, and so the foreshadowing is done so well that the tension is still built and you still feel like there could be some way for her to get out of it, even though you know historically that didn't happen. I'm thinking specifically about the Iphigenia section now, but obviously there will be later bits of foreshadowing that have already had some foreshadowing happen in it. Yeah, I'm just wondering if you didn't know the myth, is she doing the foreshadowing so heavy-handed because she still wants people who haven't read the myth, don't know the myth, to get some sense of foreboding and some sense of foreshadowing, because it feels heavy to me. That's the thing. As well as with, I don't want over-explanation, I also don't want heavy-handed foreshadowing. So whilst I'm still, I am liking it, I feel like I'm only telling you the things I'm critiquing. And I am enjoying it. I feel like the characters who aren't Patroclus and Achilles are much less well developed, except maybe Odysseus, but maybe that's just because I love Odysseus. I feel like the other characters are very underdeveloped, particularly what's her name, Diademea, particularly Diademea. But the way that she's characterized in here does kind of remind me of the kind of over-the-top hysterical women in Greek mythology. There isn't a lot put into characterization in some of the Greek, particularly the epic poems. There is more in the plays, but people do just sort of say things and don't really have any characteristics, so I don't know if maybe that's what she was going for. But with the like development of other characters in a more modern way and her still being this sort of hysterical woman, I don't know, kind of annoyed me. I'm only talking about the stuff I'm critiquing, but I do still like it, like I said. I like the relationship between Achilles and Patroclus. I like the development of Patroclus as a character, as a non-typical masculine Greek. I think that that's done very well. I do think it's doing a good job of, despite being like quite plotty, not feeling too plotty. It feels like there's space for the characters, but we are still going along at the clip. So I think the pacing is well done in here. And like I said, the writing is compelling and it does make me want to keep reading. So that's good too. But yeah, there's just some things that I've been thinking about. Some of those are critiques, some of them are more like, what's the intention and how does this feel for someone who doesn't know the myth? Because I think that is kind of important, isn't it? This has to work for people who aren't going to either read the Iliad or study the Iliad, who aren't going to do that. They have to, this might be your first access point to the myth of Achilles, and it has to work if you don't know what's going to happen to Iphigenia and what's going to happen to Achilles and Patroclus and who Odysseus is. Like those things, it still has to work without that foreknowledge, and it's just the way that you react depending on your level of knowledge is something that interests me. So if you have read this but you didn't know the myth beforehand, let me know in the comments down below how you felt about all those things. How did you feel about the foreshadowing? Did you pick it up? Did it take a second reading to pick it up? Let me know, because I would love to hear what you have to say. But yeah, like I said, when she said someone clever is coming, I'm like, oh, so Odysseus is turning up in the next few pages, because just from knowing the myths, you know the clever person is always Odysseus unless it's Penelope. That's just the rules. So yeah, I'm just intrigued to know how this works for someone who doesn't have as much foreknowledge as I do. Hello, so I have now finished Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, and my final thoughts. I feel like so of the last 30%, the first 20% of the last 30% was my favourite bit of the book. I thought the writing there, when it got into the action, actually got better, which is interesting because I don't really like hugely plotty books, but I think that she lent into the kind of poetic form a bit more, and everything was a bit more stripped back and just like imagery, which I thought was really good. I liked the Patroclus part there. I didn't really feel any emotional connection to this book, and it's hard to know how much of that is because the representation of Achilles, I feel like he's been like nicened up a bit in order to make him sympathetic, and again, as I said before, it's a retelling. You can do what you want. You can make him the best bloke in the world if you want to, and she hasn't gone that far, but he has been nicened up a bit. But also, like, for me, there were no twists in this book because I knew what was going to happen, and she stuck very closely to the myth, but kind of filled in the parts, the sections between Achilles and Patroclus, and a lot of what she did with Briseis is very much her own thing, which I appreciate, like removing the sexual violence, but it feels not Greek then. Like, sexual violence is very much Greek, and removing it is less Greek. I mean ancient Greek, obviously. So all of the foreshadowing felt a little heavy-handed, but is it because I knew exactly what it was foreshadowing, like I said earlier? The writing style as well, as I said, didn't really appeal to me. It was very simple and straightforward. The framing that we find out at the end, like the way that it's being told, I'm trying not to spoil things, but you know, the way that it's being told at the end, I thought, again, because I know what's happened, felt like it was done a little over the top, because I was like, yeah, of course that's how it's being told, we know that, but I guess you only know that if you know the myth. But it's a super famous myth, so I know a lot of people might go into this not knowing it, but a lot of people are going to be reading this knowing at least the basic facts. Yeah, I'm not disappointed in it too much. Like, it's fine, but I think maybe it's a problem of being overhyped. Maybe it's a problem of me being a little old for this book, for a first time reader of this book. Maybe it's a problem of me being not the kind of reader for this book. I've realised through the course of this vlog as well, I was trying to think of a modern adaptation of a Greek myth that I like, and I can't think of one. I don't know if maybe I'm just forgetting something that I really loved, but like, I don't like the Penelopiad for a lot of the same reason I didn't like this. Not that it was obvious, but that it was like yeah, it was obvious in what it was saying. Its feminism was just like bang, bang, and I was like, please, calm down. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. I feel like it's just a fine book. Like, if it's your first introduction, it's probably really good. If you don't know what's going to happen and the twists, maybe you'll be more surprised. The writing is fine and compelling. Like I said, it kept me going through this book, but it didn't feel special to me. And the relationship between Achilles and Patroclus, I was just like, Patroclus, mate, he's not, you're too good for him. You're too good for him. Pull yourself together, man. Overall, I didn't really believe the relationship, and I didn't really care that much about the relationship. I didn't believe in the relationship as presented in here. I didn't see the connection between them. A little bit in the beginning, but it was more like I saw Patroclus fancying Achilles, but I didn't see the reciprocation or the relationship very much. And they barely pay attention. Like from here, it's just lusting, and from here, Achilles is off somewhere else and he's just sad. So that actually, like, nice relationship, barely in it at all. Yeah, I want the gods a bit better. I want the gods more. I don't know, maybe Circe would be more up my street. I'm not opposed to reading it, and the way people have described that one as super atmospheric, I'm intrigued by that. But yeah, overall, disappointing, and I'm a bit upset by that. I don't know, maybe I'm went in with too high expectations. Maybe I'm too judgy. I don't know, but I didn't love it as much as I'd hoped I would. Maybe you can persuade me in the comments. Let me know why you love this book. Maybe I'll be able to see from a slightly different perspective if you did love this book. And thank you for watching. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up if you did like it, if you're not pissed off with me for not loving Song of Achilles. And remember to subscribe, and I will get back. And I put out new videos every Thursday and Sunday, so I will be back again very soon. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.